Unaware of the plot, Zio Lin is pushing himself to the limit on the treadmill, slowly racking up physical fitness experience. He's sweating buckets, but he's making progress. His basic physical fitness is currently sitting at level 1. He finally stops to catch his breath, noticing it's already almost 7 o'clock. He figures he can just make it back to the dorms before curfew if he leaves now. As he walks toward the exit, he plans to keep up this routine every day until he hits level 2. But when he reaches for the door handle, something's wrong. It won't budge. Multiple clicking sounds echo through the empty gym. The door has been deadbolted from the outside. He stares at the lock in disbelief, wondering if he's really trapped inside. He tries the handle again, thinking the staff was just being careless and didn't bother checking if anyone was still in here. He grumbles about having to sleep in the gym since curfew is coming up fast. Suddenly, a loud snap echoes through the room as the lights completely die. Zio Lin stands frozen in the middle of the pitch-black training room. He tries to stay calm, forcing a laugh and telling himself it's just the power being cut for the night. He shivers in the dark, questioning why a fancy school would cut the power while students might still be around. The night sky over the academy holds a strange secret, 2 crescent moons hanging side by side. Someone's reporting a freshman monitor for breaking curfew. Chen Yu and Han Sen from the discipline department are on the move. Han Sen confirms the tip-off came from Liang Ziyu and insists they need to make an example of the kid. Chen Yu adjusts his glasses, nodding that with the principal and president away, these small-time violations fall squarely on him. He's not planning on being lenient. He wants his department to keep a suffocatingly close watch for any slip-ups. Han Sen is all smiles and flattery, eager to prove his worth to the grade leader. They reach the training ground, ready to start their sweep. Han Sen's smirk widens. He's clearly looking forward to the enforcement part of the job. He figures an acting monitor must have a hoard of redemption points, just waiting to be seized. A door pulls open with a sharp, echoing creak. The gym looks deserted, leaving Han Sen blinking into the dark shadows. Chen Yu asks what's wrong, while Han Sen points a shaking finger into the empty room. He's positive he heard someone scurrying around in here just a moment ago. Zio Lin is pressed flat against the wall, holding his breath as sweat beads on his forehead. Chen Yu isn't buying it. The door was locked from the outside, so nobody could have been inside. Han Sen brushes it off with a nervous laugh, figuring his ears must be playing tricks on him. But as he turned to leave, his face went completely blank. He was utterly seething that his prey had vanished into thin air like magic. Little did he know, while he was frantically searching around, Zio Lin had already slipped away undetected. Outside, the wind rustles through the forest under the pale blue light of the stars. Zio Lin finally lets out a ragged breath, leaning against a tree as he realizes how close he came to getting caught. He knows that being caught out at night means a massive point deduction. It finally clicks. Getting locked in and then having the patrol show up immediately wasn't a coincidence. It was a setup. He wonders if he's overthinking it, or if someone actually has a target on his back. His eyes sharpen as he looks toward the horizon. There they are again, 2 moons glowing brightly above the tree line. He remembers the lesson about the academy being modeled after Norma World. Now he's seeing it for himself. Returning to the gym is too risky, so he has to find a new place to lay low for the night. A massive, jagged purple head rises from the foliage nearby. A chill runs down his spine as he senses something far larger than any student watching him. A giant glowing purple eye blinks open, focusing its gaze directly on him. It's the purple dragon, the same beast from the entrance ceremony. Zio Lin freezes, his mind racing as he recognizes the monster. The dragon shifts, its wings casting a massive shadow across the clearing. It stares down at him with an intensity that makes his blood run cold. Flight is the only option. He doesn't wait to find out if it's hungry. He turns and bolts as fast as he can. He glances back, praying he's not about to become a midnight snack. Through the dense trees, he spots the outline of a large building. Desperate for any kind of shelter, he decides to dive inside and hide. He slips through a trellis-covered entrance, the wood creaking under his weight. He stops to catch his breath, hoping the dragon won't follow him into a confined space. A rustling sound comes from the garden nearby. He looks down to see a black bird with glowing red eyes staring back. That's no ordinary chicken. It's not just the birds. The cabbages in this garden are bigger than he is. Nearby, a bush is loaded with glowing red fruit that smells incredibly sweet. He wonders if he should risk a taste. Lin stares down at the bird, wondering if it's as tasty as it looks. It looks plump and delicious. Suddenly, he's really craving some beggar's chicken. But the bird has other plans and lets out a deafening roar. He's barely processed the sound before the chicken literally breathes fire right at his face. Lin scrambles backward, realizing this academy is way more dangerous than he thought. Suddenly, a hand reaches out and snatches the fire breather right by its neck. Lin freezes, looking up at the mysterious newcomer. The man looks tired, holding the limp bird while accusing Lin of trying to steal his livestock in the middle of the night. The two stand in the garden, a tense silence settling between them under the moonlight. Lin gulps and tries to find his voice to ask who this guy even is. The man just scoffs at the question. He introduces himself as Song Junlang, the head of the logistics department, and he's not happy about the intruder. Song Junlang notes that Lin is a freshman who's already managed to break curfew and trespass in his territory. He holds up the traumatized chicken, asking how the kid plans to pay for scaring his dinner. Lin panics, apologizing and explaining he was just trying to hide from the dragon roaming around. To make a long story short, he recounts how he ended up locked in the training grounds earlier. He explains the whole setup, with the patrol showing up while he was trapped inside. And eventually, he ran into the massive, fire-breathing purple dragon. Song Junlang listens before telling him that Big Lizard isn't actually a threat. He casually adds that Lin is way too weak for a dragon to even bother attacking. Lin can't believe the man just called that monster a lizard. As for the training ground incident, Song Junlang says it's a classic trick from the discipline department. Lin realizes he was set up, while Song Junlang brings up redemption points, the hard currency of the academy. Everything from buying equipment to activating simulation fields requires these points. Even getting resources from the new world costs a fortune. Those points are also the key to whether you can actually graduate or move on to the new world. He explains that the discipline department loves playing entrapment games with unsuspecting students. They set you up to break a rule, then offer a private settlement to keep it quiet. Basically, you hand over a few hundred redemption points as a fine to avoid getting a formal deduction. Lin is disgusted by the tactic and immediately suspects Wang Dalin is behind his framing. Song Junlang turns his attention back to the junior standing in front of him. Staying out all night and trespassing in the logistics department are serious offenses. Combined, those two rules could cost Lin a massive amount of points. A loud thump echoes from the gate, catching them both off guard. Song Junlang realizes the discipline department is dead set on catching the rule breaker tonight. He smirks, asking if he should just open the door and let them take him away. Lin pleads with the senior, hoping he's not just telling him all this to watch him fail. Song Junlang is impressed by the kid's quick thinking and decides he's worth the effort. He suddenly asks Lin if he knows anything about cooking. Lin is completely baffled by the question. He stammers out a weak, maybe a little, thinking back to his college days. In reality, his cooking experience is just scrolling through tutorials while eating snacks. He's never actually touched a stove. Song Junlang offers a way out, claiming that as long as Lin can cook, his standards are actually quite low. He promises to handle the search party outside and ensure Lin doesn't lose any points, provided the freshman does him a small favor. He's been craving a specific dish called beggar's chicken for ages and wants Lin to use this very bird to make him a feast. Lin points to himself, sweating as he realizes he's being tasked with cooking this fire-breathing monster. Song Junlang reminds him that he's trapped anyway, giving him a choice between two very different paths. Either walk out and face the certain punishment and point loss, or stay behind and cook the chicken while Song settles everything. Desperate to save his credits, Zio Lin puts on a brave face and agrees to the deal. Song Junleng flashes a sinister grin, wanting to make sure it's on the record that this is a completely voluntary act. Zio Lin agrees enthusiastically, though he can't shake the sinking feeling that he's just signed a deal with the devil. Song points toward the building, telling the freshman to hide inside and stay as quiet as a mouse while he handles the group outside. Zio Lin hurries off, thanking the senior for the unexpected lifeline. Song Junleng steps out to meet the patrol, greeting them with a casual and irritatingly cheerful shout. He specifically addresses the group's leader, Chen Yu, who looks far from pleased to see him. He asks if the discipline department is so hungry that they've come to the logistics garden looking for a midnight snack. Adjusting his glasses, Chen Yu explains they're investigating reports of abnormal movement from the principal's pet bird. He insults Song for wasting his time with such trivial things late at night, unaware that the pet is currently in a ghostly state of shock. Song Junleng just chuckles, clearly enjoying the confrontation. He dryly asks if they actually managed to find whatever was causing all that abnormal movement. The purple-haired student, Han Sen, snaps back that the discipline department has the authority to patrol every inch of the academy. He adds that they're hunting for a freshman breaking curfew and warns Song that he doesn't have the rank to block their inspection. Song's casual demeanor vanishes, and he stares down Han Sen, calling him a low-level lackey who shouldn't butt in. He threatens to report the group for trespassing if they continue to annoy him, knowing full well the underhanded tactics they usually employ. Chen Yu is seething at the threat, his face contorted with anger. He scoffs, stating that everyone knows Song's actual power level isn't even C-class. He calls the senior a connection hire, who wouldn't even be qualified for the second year if the principal hadn't personally appointed him as a department head. Zio Lin watches the scene unfold from the shadows, surprised by the blatant disrespect. It's clear to him now that Chen Yu has a massive grudge against Senior Song. The freshman realizes that the internal politics of the academy are just as dangerous as the monsters outside. Chap 13. Back at the logistics department, the air is thick with tension as Chen Yu stares down Minister Song. Zio Lin stays hidden in the shadows, sweating bullets as he wonders if these two are actually about to throw hands. Song just scoffs, looking completely unimpressed by the senior's posturing. He mocks Chen Yu, pointing out that provoking someone with his level of connections isn't exactly a high IQ move. One of Chen Yu's lackeys snaps, warning Song that even his friendship with the principal won't let him ignore academy rules. He shouts that the discipline department has formal authority, and Song has no right to get in their way. Suddenly, a sharp chime cuts through the argument, an incoming call from the academy president. Chen Yu's face hardens as he orders the call to be put through. A blue hologram flickers into life, and the president immediately demands to know why Chen Yu is harassing the logistics department. He gives a direct order to stand down, but Chen Yu tries to argue that they're just hunting for anomalies. Chen Yu grits his teeth, furious that he was so close to finally pinning something on Song. His subordinate isn't backing down either, accusing the president of being blatantly biased. He insists that the freshmen might be hiding right under their noses. The president's tone goes cold, as he explains that the entire academy owes Minister Song a debt they can never repay. Because of that favor, Song has a free pass to do whatever he wants as long as it doesn't sink the school. Chen Yu's ego takes a massive hit, and he lets out a frustrated growl. With no other choice, he barks out the order to retreat. The discipline squad turns around and starts their walk of shame out of the garden. Before disappearing, Chen Yu tosses a final threat over his shoulder, telling Song to watch his back. Song just gives him a lazy smirk, telling the senior to worry about himself instead. Once the coast is clear, Zio Lin steps out and apologizes for all the trouble he's caused. He's genuinely confused about how someone as eccentric as Song could have the school's leadership in his pocket. Song laughs it off, claiming those guys just pick fights because they're bored. He quickly changes the subject, ushering the kid away to get started on that beggar's chicken. Zio Lin can't believe the man is prioritizing dinner after almost getting into a political war. He warns Song that he's never made this before, so he can't promise it'll actually taste good. He starts by prepping the hybrid chicken, which is way tougher than any bird back home. He wraps it carefully in leaves and a thick layer of mud, following the traditional recipe. As the fire crackles, Zio Lin sits back and monitors the roast. The two of them wait in silence, the only sound being the wood snapping in the flames. For the first time since being dragged to this academy, Zio Lin actually feels a moment of peace. After 2 hours, a rich, mouth-watering aroma begins to fill the garden. Zio Lin cracks open the clay shell, sweating from the heat but relieved that it looks like a success. He starts to wonder if he might actually have a secret talent for the culinary arts. Song leans in, looking impressed as the steam rises from the golden brown meat. Song tore off a massive drumstick and handed it to Zio Lin for orchestrating this chicken dish. But when he notices Song isn't reaching for it, he asks if something is wrong. Song puts on a noble act, insisting that as the chef, Zio Lin deserves to take the very first bite. Starving after all the training and hiding, the freshman doesn't need to be told twice. He takes a massive, confident bite of the drumstick. His eyes light up. It's tender, flavorful, and easily the best chicken he's ever tasted. But as he chews, Song's expression turns serious and he asks a chilling question. How does his body actually feel? Zio Lin is confused. He doesn't understand why the minister is asking about how his body feels instead of how the food tastes. Suddenly, a sharp, rhythmic thumping starts in his chest. Something is very wrong. The chicken drops to the ground as he clutches his stomach. It feels like he just swallowed a gallon of liquid fire. Song Junlang stands over him, casually asking if the pain is the only thing he's feeling. He tells the kid to just endure it, promising the agony will pass once the process is complete. Zio Lin gasps on the floor, realizing the minister knew exactly what this chicken would do. The man looks down with a calm, almost predatory smile, watching his experiment unfold. The freshman's vision begins to blur as he loses the fight to stay awake. In his mind, he's floating in a void, his entire body radiating an intense golden light. Glowing veins of energy begin to trace patterns across his skin, flowing through his blood. The heat inside him becomes unbearable, like his very soul is being cooked. But under the pain, there's a surge of raw power he's never felt in his life. Song's notebook shows the truth. This was hybrid iron-crowned chicken number 3, specifically bred for physical enhancement. The minister notes that despite his improvements, the biological rejection response is still incredibly violent. He watches over the unconscious boy, waiting for the results of the transformation to settle. 2 days pass, and the sun rises over the quiet medical facility. The inside is a typical researcher's mess, a chaotic lab filled with papers and strange tools. Zio Lin groggily opens his eyes, his head spinning as if he's just come off a roller coaster. Song Junlang walks in, looking far too cheerful while carrying a bowl of glowing golden items. As soon as he's fully awake, Zio Lin snaps, accusing the man of using him as a lab rat. The minister just laughs it off, claiming there was never any real risk to his life. Zio Lin isn't having it, swearing he'd come back to haunt the guy if that meal had killed him. Song tells him to take a breath and relax, since he's clearly fine now. He suggests that before they argue anymore, the kid should take a look at his stats panel. The minister promises that he's in for a massive surprise. Zio Lin narrows his eyes, skeptical but willing to check the numbers. He summons the holographic interface, deciding to trust the man one last time. The display flickers to life, showing his updated attributes. He scans the list of numbers, his expression turning from annoyance to pure confusion. Suddenly, he lets out a shout of disbelief. His strength went up by a point, but his physique jumped by 2, and his overall rating finally hit F. He's stunned. Such a massive boost from a single meal seems impossible. He continues scrolling, and his eyes practically pop out of his head. His basic physical training skill has jumped 2 entire levels all at once. It's at level 3 now, a jump that would usually take weeks of exhausting work. Song Junleng looks like he's about to burst with pride as he sees the results. He lets out a triumphant laugh, screaming that his formula actually worked. Xiao Lin demands an explanation for what that chicken really was. He asks if the effect really came from that mutant bird they just ate. Song pulls up a chair and tells him to take a seat so they can talk science. He reveals that the bird was a Tago ironcrest chicken, a unique species he created. He explains that he spent years crossbreeding domestic chickens with alien creatures from the world of Norma. Song Junleng shifts the conversation to fiction, asking Xiao Lin if he's ever read those stories where someone is transported to another world. He poses a hypothetical. If a primitive caveman were suddenly dropped into the middle of a modern city, how long would he actually survive? Xiao Lin recognizes the theory immediately. It's a common trope in science fiction and survival stories. He explains that the caveman wouldn't have the right immune system for modern diseases and would likely be killed by common germs. A small illustration shows the poor caveman being overwhelmed by giant, malicious-looking microbes. Song confirms it's the same logic for them. Blue Star and Norma are fundamentally different environments. He explains that student bodies must reach a certain stat threshold before they can physically adapt to the new world. Xiao Lin finally understands why the student council president was so alarmed by the principal's suggestion of an early entry. Song's brainwave was to find a shortcut by using the biology of Norma's creatures to speed up the human adaptation process. He sheepishly admits that his first attempt involved eating the creatures raw, which almost resulted in his death. Xiao Lin is left speechless by the minister's absolute lack of self-preservation during his research. Song explains that his subsequent research focused on creating hybrids that would reduce the violent rejection response. He calls his breakthrough food therapy, though he notes it only works once per specific hybrid breed. Xiao Lin listens intently as the man explains the biological limitations of his experiment. Song jokes that if people could just eat for stats, the academy wouldn't bother with the grueling physical training classes. While the chicken won't help him anymore, Song mentions he has plenty of other edible hybrids for the freshmen to test. Xiao Lin realizes that despite the rewards, he's effectively become the minister's willing guinea pig. Song Junleng gives a soft, satisfied chuckle as he sees the realization sink in. Xiao Lin agrees to help, but only on the condition that his life isn't put in danger again. Song promises he's safe, and then nonchalantly reveals that Xiao Lin has been unconscious for 2 whole days. The news sends Xiao Lin into a panic. He's terrified his credits will plummet for missing so much class. The minister reassures him, explaining that he's already approved a leave slip that covers his entire absence. Relieved, Xiao Lin finally relaxes as he prepares to return to his normal student life. He heads for the door, and Song reminds him not to forget their dinner appointment later tonight. Meanwhile, in the cafeteria, Gu Xiaoyu eats her meal in her usual quiet, focused manner. Behind her, several students are engaged in a loud and heated discussion about recent events. Han Sen tells the others to drop the subject of Xiao Lin, clearly frustrated by how the situation turned out. The student who locked Xiao Lin in the training field is fuming, unable to accept that the boy simply vanished for 2 days. He's even more annoyed that instead of being expelled, Xiao Lin somehow managed to get on good terms with the Minister of Logistics. Gu Xiaoyu listens to the gossip, realizing that she really hasn't seen Xiao Lin since the training field incident. She's pulled out of her thoughts when someone sits down at the table right next to her. Xiao Lin appears with a casual wave and a grin, looking remarkably healthy for someone who was just missing. Gu Xiaoyu looks him up and down, demanding to know where on earth he's been for the last 48 hours. Xiao Lin and Gu Xiaoyu sit in the cafeteria, where she immediately grills him on his 2-day disappearance. He gives her a vague brush-off, rubbing the back of his neck while trying to avoid a long explanation. The conversation is interrupted by a muscular student with short brown hair shouting from across the room. He sounds surprised and offended that Xiao Lin actually had the guts to show his face in public again. Wang Dalin walks over with a boisterous laugh, mockingly calling Xiao Lin their all-powerful acting monitor. He assumes Xiao Lin must have been expelled for violating academy rules during his absence. He stands over their table with his arms crossed, condescendingly telling Xiao Lin that he's still trash no matter how hard he trains. He laughs at the idea of an inept bird trying to fly early, insisting the gap in their strength is permanent. Xiao Lin doesn't even bother looking up, casually digging in his ear with a smug grin. He tells the bully he's doing an amazing job and should definitely keep up the attitude. The sarcasm hits Wang Dalin like a physical blow, and his face contorts with rage. He snaps back, demanding to know what's with the crappy attitude. He keeps shouting, warning Xiao Lin not to think he's special just because he's close with Minister Song from the logistics department. He reminds him that in this academy, strength is the only thing that matters. Wang Dalin turns to leave, throwing one last jab over his shoulder. He promises to show Xiao Lin exactly how massive the gap between them is during the upcoming comprehensive exam. Xiao Lin watches him stomp away, looking more bored than anything else. He mutters about how crazy the guy is before turning his attention back to his meal. Gu Xiaoyu ignores the drama entirely, pushing her glasses up as she asks if he's seen the new notice yet. Her serious expression suggests it's not something he can just brush off. She explains that the time for the first comprehensive exam has been rescheduled. She raises a finger to emphasize the point, her gaze fixed intently on him. Xiao Lin is stunned to hear that the preparation time has been cut exactly in half. What was supposed to be 3 months is now only a month and a half away. He realizes he's in serious trouble since he barely has any time left to improve his abilities. If he can't make a massive jump in strength, passing the assessment will be an issue, let alone reaching the top 3. Today's class is on basic meditation, and he's already missed the first 2 days. He knows he has to hurry and catch up on everything he's missed if he wants any chance of survival. A very short girl in a purple witch outfit, Li Meiling, appears in the classroom. She is a third-year student and the substitute teacher for basic meditation, and she doesn't look happy to see him. She immediately starts shouting, accusing Xiao Lin of being the one who bullied her senior, Cheng Na. She's convinced he caused trouble in swordsmanship class and forced Cheng Na into a rude request. Xiao Lin puts his hands up defensively, trying to clarify that it's all a misunderstanding. He insists he never bullied Cheng Na and that it was her who wanted to test his strength. Li Meiling snaps back with a loud shout of disbelief. The other students sit on their meditation cushions, watching the substitute teacher lose her temper. She paints a dramatic vision of a crying Cheng Na, claiming she was only trying to help him. She accuses him of ignoring her advice on dual magic martial cultivation and even pressuring her with the student council president. Li Meiling points a finger right at his chest, calling him an ungrateful fellow. She tells him that if it weren't for Cheng Na speaking on his behalf, she wouldn't have even let him into her classroom. She turns her back on him and starts walking, lecturing about how freshmen like him never understand good intentions. Her tone is heavy with a grudge as she begins a story about a previous student. She recalls a junior who was exactly like him, stubbornly insisting on taking the path of dual cultivation despite being advised against it repeatedly. Eventually, the academy had no choice but to let him do as he pleased. A flashback shows Cheng Na happily talking to a male student in tactical gear. It was a simpler time before the tragedy that was about to unfold. In that student's very first encounter in the new world, his unrefined magic and half-baked sword skills failed him. He was torn to shreds by a pack of savage, red-eyed monsters as he stood alone on the battlefield. Li Meiling describes the aftermath, saying his body was nothing but a pile of shredded meat when it was sent back. A vision of Cheng Na shows her crying over the loss of her junior. The incident became a lifelong nightmare for Cheng Na, leaving her with a crushing sense of guilt. Li Meiling stares ahead, her voice trembling with emotion as she explains that Xiao Lin knows nothing of that pain. She looks down, her face shadowed by the brim of her witch hat as she relives the memory. The weight of her senior's trauma seems to rest squarely on her small shoulders. Xiao Lin stands silently behind her, finally understanding why Cheng Na was so opposed to his training path. It wasn't about looking down on him. It was about preventing another death. He realizes that her actions came from a place of genuine concern after witnessing such a horrific tragedy in the past. He watches Lee Mei-ling as she trembles with anger and sorrow. He tells his teacher that he understands her point, but his expression remains firm. He has no intention of backing down from his chosen path. Xiao Lin adjusts his collar and looks up with a confident smile, telling her not to worry. He vows that everything he does is for survival, and he won't let history repeat itself with him. Lee Mei-ling looks at him with surprise, her purple eyes wide behind her glasses. She seems taken aback by the intensity of his conviction. She huffs and crosses her arms, telling him that survival is easier said than done. She warns him that she won't be giving him any private makeup lessons for the classes he missed, so he'll have to figure it out himself. Xiao Lin gives her a simple acknowledgement and starts walking toward the back of the classroom. The other students watch him pass, their expressions ranging from curious to indifferent. Gu Xiaoyu waves him over from her spot on a meditation cushion, signaling for him to join her. She looks much more approachable than the substitute teacher. Xiao Lin spots her and heads over, looking relieved to see a friendly face. He had been worried about falling behind in a class he knew nothing about. She hands him a brown notebook, explaining that these are her notes from the last 2 days of classes. Xiao Lin takes it gratefully, thanking her for the help. He opens the notebook and starts skimming through the detailed handwriting. He's impressed by how thorough she is, even with the basics of meditation. The notes describe the 4 major elements that make up their world: wind, fire, water, and earth. Each one is represented by a small, glowing wisp of energy in the diagram. It goes on to explain how powerful mages can control these elements at will, combining them like lines of code to construct complex and devastating spells. A silhouette of a mage is shown wielding all 4 elements simultaneously. The essence of meditation is to perceive these elements drifting in the air, establish a connection, and then try to control them. Xiao Lin sits cross-legged, surrounded by swirling elemental energy as he attempts the exercise. He shuts his eyes tight, sweat beaded on his forehead as he tries to sense anything at all. After a few moments, he realizes something is wrong because the world around him remains completely empty. Xiao Lin sits cross-legged, eyes squeezed shut as he tries to focus. He's sweating from the effort, but after a long silence, he realizes he still can't perceive a single thing. A golden, glowing fruit is tossed into the air and caught by a hand. A voice calls out, asking if he's hit a roadblock in his meditation studies. He visits the night garden to see Song Junlang, hopping for a shortcut. He points to the cabbages and asks if there's any food that can magically boost his elemental perception. Song Junlang looks at him with a deadpan expression, asking if he looks like a cartoon character with a bottomless pocket of gadgets. Xiao Lin looks absolutely crushed in the corner of the frame. The senior leans against a tree, casually snacking on the glowing fruit. He explains that failing to start is completely normal, as the jump from 0 to 1 experience point is the hardest hurdle to clear. He notes that while some get it in a week, others might struggle for months. Xiao Lin snaps back with urgency, knowing he doesn't have months with the first assessment looming in just 4 weeks. Song Junlang rubs his chin, considering the problem. He suggests that if he can't get it on his own, he should look for a classmate with high intelligence to learn from their experience. He explains the mechanical link. Elemental perception is tied directly to the intelligence attribute. The higher the stat, the easier it is to break through that initial barrier. A light bulb goes off in Xiao Lin's head as he remembers his authority as acting monitor. He realizes he can use the system to check the attribute values of everyone in his class. He reaches out and swipes through a holographic screen, searching the student database. He knows exactly who to look for, the one with the highest intelligence. His eye goes wide with shock as the data pulls up on his screen. Something in the profile is completely unexpected, leaving him staring in disbelief. The system displays Gu Xiaoyu's student profile, revealing an incredible 36 points in intelligence. But at the bottom, it lists her remaining lifespan as a mere 2 years. He stares at the glowing text, unable to believe what he's seeing. Gu Xiaoyu looks back from the screen, her stoic expression hiding a ticking clock. Zio Lin walks through the academy corridors, his mind heavy with the secret he just uncovered. The news has completely derailed his focus on training. He reaches the classroom and throws the doors open, his eyes immediately searching the room. He looks determined to confront the issue. Gu Zioyu is already there, sitting quietly on her meditation cushion. She seems to sense his arrival and shifts her attention. She gives him a polite wave and a small greeting. She looks as composed as ever, showing no sign of the tragedy hidden in her stats. Zio Lin drops onto the cushion in front of her, his brow furrowed. He doesn't bother with small talk, his serious expression signaling that something is wrong. He reminds her that as the acting monitor, he has the power to look at student profiles. He looks up at her, hesitant but determined to speak. He tells her straight out that he saw her natural lifespan. He mentions the exact remaining time, 2 years, and waits for her reaction. Internal panic sets in immediately as he realizes how creepy he sounds prying into her private business. He turns into a sweating, spiraling chibai, cursing the awkwardness he just created. Gu Zioyu stares at him through her glasses, her expression unreadable. For a long moment the classroom is silent. She sits calmly, her hands resting on her knees. She doesn't look angry or scared, just quietly observant as he waits for her to say something. She finally asks why he's bringing this up so suddenly. Her voice is level, betraying none of the weight the topic carries. Zio Lin leans in close, his voice dropping to a whisper as he asks if she's suffering from some kind of terminal illness. He looks deeply concerned for her well-being. He tells her that since they've survived life-or-death situations together, he wants to help her find a solution. He places a hand on his chest, speaking with genuine sincerity. Gu Zioyu begins to speak, her gaze drifting slightly as she prepares to reveal the truth. She remains remarkably composed. She clarifies that it's not a disease or a terminal illness. She explains simply that it's something she was born with, a natural condition. Zio Lin's eyes go wide. The idea of being born with such a short lifespan is something he can't quite wrap his head around. He realizes why she was so laser-focused when Qin Chuan mentioned that staying at the school could increase lifespan. She confirms it with a soft, yeah, acknowledging her motivation. She reminds him of the Academy's rules. Those who fail the assessment lose their memories and get sent home to Blue Star. She looks at him with a somber intensity. She explains that while going back might be fine for others, for her it means only 2 years left with no way to change her fate. Her resolve to stay at the academy is absolute. She looks him in the eye and thanks him sincerely. She credits his help with giving her the chance to stay and sees this one opportunity to live. Zio Lin looks away, rubbing his head in embarrassment. He plays it off as a win-win situation, claiming he just wanted to maximize his own rewards. He tells her she can ask him for help anytime. He considers her a friend after surviving the admission test together. The PA system on the wall suddenly crackles to life, cutting through the emotional moment between them. The classroom doors swing open and Li Meiling stomps in, looking completely miserable. She grumbles about only being a substitute teacher for a handful of credits. She stops in her tracks when she sees the students already waiting. She looks them over with a skeptical eye, her annoyance still clear. A small, floating version of the witch teacher gives them a begrudging humph. She admits she can offer a bit of praise since they actually showed up on time. Zio Lin gives her a bright, enthusiastic acknowledgement, thanking her for the compliment. Gu Zioyu just watches silently, her expression returning to its usual stoic state. Li Meiling snaps at them, pointing a finger as she reminds them of their failure in the last session. She notes that they didn't even manage basic elemental perception before the bell rang. She yells at them to get out and stick to swinging swords if they're still stuck in the same place today. Her sharp warning leaves no room for excuses. Zio Lin puts on a polite smile, nodding along to the teacher's sharp words. Internally, he notes that while the senior looks petite and cute, her temper is surprisingly explosive. The other students in the room maintain a cautious silence, their expressions varying from focused to intimidated. They all keep their heads down, avoiding the teacher's wrath. Zio Lin closes his eyes and attempts to enter a meditative state once more. A bead of sweat rolls down his forehead as he struggles to find any sign of the elemental world. Despite his intense focus, the world remains a void of darkness. He realizes with frustration that he still can't perceive a single bit of elemental energy, just like his previous attempts. His eyes snap open, burning with a new resolve. Since conventional training methods are failing him, he decides it's time to use his one remaining ace in the hole. He concentrates on his unique talent, the top student ability. A surge of power washes over him as he prepares to activate the skill and bypass his natural limitations. His vision shifts, allowing him to scan the entire classroom and the students seated within it. He searches for anyone who has already mastered the basics of meditation. Most of his classmates show up as having no detectable skills, but his scan finally lands on someone with an active ability. A blue aura surrounds a student who has reached level 1 of basic meditation. Zio Lin's gaze narrows as he processes the data, noting that the vast majority of the class is still at level 0. He continues his search, looking for a more potent source of knowledge. His eyes settle on Gu Zioyu, who is bathed in a brilliant, golden elemental flame. He's stunned to see her meditation skill is already at level 6, dwarfing everyone else in the room. Without hesitation, he commands the system to copy her ability. A notification appears, confirming he now has access to level 6 basic meditation for the next 3 minutes. The world around him suddenly explodes into vibrant colors, with red and blue elemental trails swirling through the air. He stands in awe, finally seeing the world as a powerful mage would. He knows he only has a short window of time before the copied skill expires. He resolves to imprint this feeling into his mind so he can unlock the ability permanently. At the front of the room, Li Meiling leans on her desk, looking completely disinterested. Her workspace is cluttered with ancient books, scrolls, and a large crystal ball. She lets out a long, bored sigh, resting her chin on her hand. Her mind drifts away from the lesson, wishing she could skip out and go play with someone named Nana. She looks out at the class with a skeptical gaze, thinking that most of the students are just brats who don't understand the complexity of magic. In her mind, Gu Zioyu is the only one with any real talent. Suddenly, her eyes widen in shock as she senses a massive shift in the room's energy. She snaps her head toward the source of the disturbance, her boredom instantly forgotten. She stares in disbelief at Zio Lin, who is now the center of a powerful elemental vortex. The power of the elements is gathering around him on its own initiative, a feat that should be impossible for a novice. She stands up from her desk, her mouth agape as she struggles to make sense of what she's seeing. She knows his intelligence stat is incredibly low, making this sudden breakthrough inexplicable. Zio Lin remains perfectly still, a confident smirk playing on his lips as the purple energy of the copied skill flows through him. A sharp ding echoes in his mind, signaling a system update. A bright holographic screen appears before him, announcing that he has successfully unlocked the basic meditation skill. He has finally reached level 1 on his own terms. He clenches his fist in triumph, feeling the newfound connection to the elements. He recalls Minister Song's advice, that perceiving the elements just once is the key to unlocking the path. His moment of celebration is cut short as Li Meiling marches over to him. She looks down at him, her shadow looming over his seated form. She plants her hands on her hips, her expression a mix of suspicion and genuine amazement. She demands an honest confession, certain that he must have used some kind of underhanded trick to cause such a commotion. A hand suddenly clamps down on Zio Lin's wrist. The command is short and sharp. He's going somewhere whether he likes it or not. He looks down to see a petite girl in a witch's hat dragging him out of the room. He's caught off guard, barely managing to stammer out a question as Li Meiling pulls him along. Li Meiling pulls up his student profile on a holographic interface. She's looking for answers about his recent performance in class. Her eyes go wide as she sees his status. It's confirmed. Zio Lin has actually unlocked level 1 basic meditation, something that should be impossible with his low stats. She turns on him, demanding an immediate explanation. She's not in the mood for games and wants the truth behind his sudden breakthrough. Zio Lin tries to play it off as a simple epiphany, but his awkward grin doesn't help. Li Meiling isn't buying a single word of his natural talent excuse. He quickly switches tactics, crediting his success to private tutoring from Gu Zioyu and some questionable snacks from Song Junlang's lab. It's a half-truth designed to sound plausible enough to get her off his back. He shrugs, suggesting that maybe one of those weird fruits gave him a temporary boost. It's the perfect cover. If something weird happened, just blame the guy known for feeding students experimental food. The mention of Song Junlang actually works. Since that man is a known lunatic in the academy, his involvement makes any impossible situation seem likely. Li Meiling gives him a stern warning about being a lab rat for a man who values research over human life. Zio Lin just nods along, relieved that she's finally dropped the interrogation. Feeling bold, Zio Lin asks when he can finally start learning real spells. He's eager to see what he can do now that he's unlocked meditation. Instead of an answer, he gets a sharp flick to the forehead. It's a literal reality check delivered with a satisfying snap. She points out the obvious flaw in his plan. His intelligence stat is a dismal 2 points. Unlocking meditation is just the start. Controlling elements and forming spells requires a brain capacity he simply doesn't have. She lays it out plainly, calling his dreams of magic pure wishful thinking for his first year. Zio Lin slumps, the harsh reality of his stats finally sinking in. He realizes his low intelligence is a major roadblock. While his skill-copying talent is powerful, the long cooldown means he can't rely on it for his daily training. He wonders if he's stuck being a pure physical fighter. He knows he needs a hidden ace to survive the upcoming assessments, and a little magic would have been perfect. Li Meiling watches him, realizing he's likely trying the dangerous path of dual cultivation out of desperation. She knows the freshman trials are brutal and can't entirely blame him for taking such a risk just to survive. She clears her throat to break the heavy silence. Zio Lin snaps out of his thoughts as she prepares to offer a bit more advice. She acts like she's doing him a massive favor, claiming she wouldn't bother helping just anyone. It's her way of softening the blow before giving him a lead. She reminds him of the students he saw using staves during the entrance exam. Zio Lin's eyes widen as he starts to see where she's going with this. He remembers picking up a staff during the test and firing off an energy bomb without knowing a single spell. It was the only time magic actually worked for him. Li Meiling explains that a staff acts as a bridge. It lowers the requirement for element control and boosts perception, essentially doing the heavy lifting for a mage with low stats. Those starter staves had the spells preloaded. As long as a person has even a tiny bit of intelligence, they can trigger the enchantment without needing to master the spell themselves. She points him toward the equipment trading area. There, he can find gear with built-in skills, which is exactly what he needs to bridge the gap in his abilities. Zio Lin is genuinely grateful, thanking her profusely for the tip. This changes everything for his upcoming training. She adds one final warning. The trading area is full of junk. Some items are so poorly made they'll explode in his face after a couple of uses if he isn't careful. She tells him to stay away from the flashy high-tier gear. With his low stats, he'd be lucky to even handle a basic staff without it going haywire. Zio Lin promises to follow the advice as she heads off. He's got a plan now, and he isn't going to waste it on flashy, useless gear. Li Meiling pauses at the door, one last thought on her mind. She gives him a final, somber reminder. Don't risk your life just to get stronger. In this academy, staying alive is the only goal that truly matters. Zio Lin watches her go, realizing she's a lot nicer than her sharp tongue makes her out to be. She clearly cares more about the freshmen than she lets on. Later, he arrives at the trading area with 800 exchange points burning a hole in his pocket. It's time to see what that money can buy him. He has to be smart with his budget. Entering the simulation costs 500 points, a deposit he only gets back if he survives and clears the floor. That leaves him with only 300 points for gear. After a week of scouring the market and haggling with sellers, he finally secures 2 customized novice weapons that fit his unique needs. He's now the owner of an enhanced staff with an ice bolt enchantment and a short sword that can trigger a wind blade. It's a modest setup, but it's tailored specifically for his combat style. Fully geared up in his tactical suit, Zio Lin stands ready in the training grounds. He's done the prep work. Now it's time to see if his plan actually works in a real fight. He takes a deep breath, mentally checking his gear one last time. Everything is in place. A confirmation screen pops up for the E-rank simulation. It's a high-stakes gamble. Lose here, and he loses more than half of his savings. Without hesitation, he taps the screen to confirm. There's no turning back now. The system announces his entry as the world around him begins to shift. Digital artifacts and floating stones signal the start of the holographic generation. The simulation roars to life, replacing the sterile academy room with a landscape of jagged rock and molten lava. Zio Lin stares ahead, his expression hardening as the environment finishes loading. The system issues one final warning to get ready. The trial has officially begun. The simulation drops Zio Lin into the blazing lava cave, a jagged landscape of rock and flowing magma. A system window pops up, laying out his objectives. Either reach a specific point deep in the cave or survive for 2 straight hours. The silence of the cave is broken by a low growl from the shadows. A stone-armored rat emerges, baring its sharp teeth as it prepares to lunge. From the darkness of a side tunnel, dozens of red eyes flicker to life. The simulation isn't wasting any time, throwing a whole pack of monsters at him right from the start. Zio Lin draws his new short sword, looking completely unbothered by the growing numbers. He intentionally chose the E-rank difficulty to push his limits and see what his new gear can really do. The pack of rats charges all at once, their heavy paws thumping against the dry rock. Their snarls echo through the cavern as they close the distance. Zio Lin raises his short sword, teal energy beginning to swirl around the blade. He's been waiting to test the raw power of these customized weapons in a real fight. He steps forward and unleashes a wind blade, a crescent of sharp energy that slices through the air. The system confirms the attack has a piercing effect, designed to bypass the monster's tough armor. The teal energy carves through the front line, leaving trails of light in its wake. It's an efficient opening move that keeps the pack from surrounding him. Teal energy pulses around him as he focuses on the next wave. He knows that in this academy, the only way to survive the upcoming death assessments is to keep leveling up and getting stronger. He throws himself into the thick of it, moving with a speed and precision he didn't have before. The word survive is the only thing on his mind as he dodges a set of claws. As the rats fall, their forms dissolve into blue digital particles that drift away into the cave air. It's a clean kill, leaving nothing behind but experience points. He stands among the fatting embers of his enemies, a small smirk playing on his lips. The armor-piercing effect of his new sword is making short work of these creatures compared to the skeletons he fought last time. A roar much louder than the others shakes the ground, nearly knocking Zio Lin off balance. He looks up to see a massive shadow looming over him. This stone-armored rat is twice the size of the others, its back covered in jagged red crystals that glow with heat. This has to be the pack leader, and it looks a lot more dangerous than its subordinates. Teal energy once again coats his short sword as he prepares for the bigger fight. He notes that the timing of this boss's appearance is actually perfect for his training. He switches things up, pulling out his staff and letting blue magical energy gather around the crystal tip. He's ready to see how his magic-focused weapon handles a high-tier target. The giant rat charges, its heavy frame kicking up a cloud of dust as it roars. It's moving surprisingly fast for its size, closing the gap in a heartbeat. Zio Lin stands his ground, raising his staff high. A bright blue orb of light begins to glow at the top, illuminating the rocky cave walls. An ice bolt flies from the staff, slamming directly into the giant rat chest. The spell hits with a frozen impact, dealing F-rank damage and slowing the monster's momentum. Frost spreads across the creature's thick hide, locking its joints and slowing its movements to a crawl. The 1-second freeze effect worked perfectly, leaving the beast wide open. Seeing his opening, Zio Lin immediately stows the staff and draws his short sword in one smooth motion. Teal light flickers along the edge as he prepares a finishing blow. He delivers a powerful slash, the teal energy cutting through the frozen armor like it's nothing. The giant rat doesn't even have a chance to scream before it's taken down. Silence returns to the cave as the leader dissolves into particles just like the others. Zio Lin stands alone on the rocky plateau, the immediate threat cleared. He looks down at his blade, feeling satisfied with the results. Using the short sword for piercing damage and the staff for crowd control is exactly the combat flow he was aiming for. A series of system windows pop up, showing a healthy boost to his mastery levels. He's gaining experience in short sword use, staff handling, and overall physical fitness all at once. He thinks back to his previous training sessions on the academy treadmills, where progress felt like a crawl. Combat simulation is proving to be much more efficient for a guy with his attributes. He checks the timer and sees he's only been in there for about 15 minutes. Even though he's met the initial requirements, he knows there's more to be gained by staying inside. He takes a moment to sit back and rest against the cool rock, catching his breath. He decides to pace his stamina so he can explore deeper into the cave once he's recovered. A sharp ding notification cuts through the ambient noise of the cave, snapping him back to attention. He pulls up his holographic interface and is greeted by a flood of notifications from the Academy's digital forum. He's confused by the sudden attention since he's been busy training. His eyes narrow as he reads a headline specifically questioning his special perfect attendance. It seems someone is calling him out for enjoying privileges he supposedly didn't earn. The post was made by Wang Dalin, who's accusing Xiao Lin of skipping class and sucking up to Song Junlang to avoid credit deductions. He's making a public scene about Xiao Lin's single-digit attributes. Wang Dalin doesn't stop there, calling Xiao Lin trash and claiming he only became acting monitor through pure luck. He's calling for the academy to expel Xiao Lin immediately for making a joke of the rules. Xiao Lin sits quietly, scrolling through the comments left by other students. Some are curious if it's true, while others are quick to judge his dual cultivation path as a suicide mission. A dark look crosses Xiao Lin's face as he stares at the screen, a mental image of Wang Dalin's arrogant face popping into his head. He's tired of this guy using every petty method available just to annoy him. Suddenly, an error message flashes across the blue screen, stating that the post is no longer visible. He blinks in surprise, wondering why it would just vanish. A system update informs him that the post was deleted by an administrator for being malicious. Not only that, but Wang Dalin has been slapped with a 7-day ban for the personal attack. Xiao Lin looks up from the screen, genuinely curious about who would step in to help him like that. A private message arrives from Cheng Na, telling him to keep training hard. She reminds him that becoming strong is the only response he needs to give his haters. He realizes it was Senior Cheng Na who looked out for him. A small, confident smile returns to his face as he reads her encouraging words. He stands up and brushes himself off, his focus returning to the task at hand. He realizes he has no more time to waste on childish drama or people like Wang Dalin. He grips his short sword, the blade catching the dim light of the cave. The only thing that matters now is getting stronger, and he's ready to dive back into the simulation to make it happen. Xiao Lin continues deeper into the blazing lava cave, his footsteps echoing against the dry stone. Orange crystals jut from the walls, casting a flickering light over the jagged path ahead. He stops for a moment, observing the intricate details of the rock formations. He's reminded that these simulations are perfect recreations of the actual new world, meant to prepare students for the harsh reality outside the academy. As he passes the remains of a stone-armored rat, a thought crosses his mind. If the academy has technology this advanced, he wonders why they still insist on high-stakes exams that carry a real penalty of death. The sudden silence of the cave puts him on high alert. Just minutes ago, the tunnels were crawling with monsters, but now there isn't a single sound to be heard. The ceiling suddenly erupts in a violent explosion of fire and stone. Debris rains down as a massive force slams into the ground right in front of him. Xiao Lin barely has time to react as a second pillar of energy blasts through the cavern. He shields his face from the intense heat and the shockwave of the impact. Through the swirling smoke and steam, Xiao Lin looks up with a hardened expression. Sweat beads on his forehead as he tries to make out the source of the devastating attack. His eyes widen in shock as the dust begins to settle. Something far more dangerous than a simple cave monster has just entered the arena. A massive silhouette looms through the thinning smoke, a gargantuan axe resting on its shoulder. Zio Lin immediately recognizes it as a member of the native races from planet Norma. The creature steps forward, revealing the imposing form of a lava berserker from the troll race. Its skin is a patchwork of dark muscle and glowing red veins, marking it as a black iron rank threat. On planet Norma and within the Academy, every living being is categorized into tiers based on their raw power. It's a rigid system that defines the hierarchy of the entire new world. Most freshmen, including Zio Lin, fall into the ordinary rank. This level is reserved for those whose total attribute values haven't yet crossed the 100-point threshold. Above them is the black iron rank, where individuals boast attribute totals exceeding 100 points. This rank is considered the absolute minimum requirement for anyone hopping to set foot in the new world. The ladder continues upward through the bronze rank, held by seasoned veterans who have survived countless battles. These warriors are the backbone of the Academy's military strength. Beyond that are the silver rank entities, often taking the form of powerful mythical beasts that can dominate entire regions. The gold rank represents a level of power that begins to transcend mortal limitations. Those who reach this height are often viewed as more than human by those below them. Near the pinnacle is the dark gold rank, a tier occupied by legendary creatures like the great dragons. Their presence alone is enough to change the course of a war. At the very top stands the legendary rank. These are the masters of magic and combat whose names are recorded in history, possessing power that few can even imagine. Zio Lin stares at the lava berserker, realizing the sheer gap between them. Being a black iron rank means this creature has attributes at least 8 times higher than his own. Standing before the giant, Zio Lin feels small and vulnerable. His current attribute total is only 13 points, making him little more than an ant in the eyes of this titan. The berserker's glowing eyes fix on him, its massive axe beginning to glow with heat. Zio Lin knows that a head-on fight against a black iron opponent at his current level can only end in a crushing defeat.